Thank you. All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call, all members of council are present. To the members, any disclosure or pecuniary interest on the agenda is presented to you this afternoon? I see none, so we'll move on to the introduction. Certainly the purpose of our meeting today is to hear comments from affected landowners on the proposed reconsidered drainage report for the reassessment of the sewer drain and extension prepared by Mark Hernandez, professional engineer of Dillon Consultant Limited. And that was dated June 11, 2021. I certainly now would like to call upon our drainage superintendent, Mr. Sam Paglia, and our engineer, Mark Hernandez, to present the drainage report. And if there's any other comments you'd like to add at this time.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Council and ladies and gentlemen. As I do regularly, give Council an update on what has transpired since the last time we met on June the 8th for the sewer drain. We had sent the report back for reconsideration for an amalgamation of lands in the assessment schedule. So on June 29th, we were contacted by a landowner with 6.36 acres concerned about putting the drain through their lands. So there was some discussion back and forth with this landowner. They initially wanted to be a delegate at tonight's meeting, but after those discussions, none of this affects any of the lands in question there, because we're just adopting a schedule. So a variation in schedule. We're not doing any improvements as defined under the Drainage Act. So there's no rerouting of lands, and that future development that they spoke of, there's still plenty of opportunity to discuss drainage matters there. So that was resolved. Then on July 7th, we were contacted by a landowner, and as council's aware, any landowner can appeal the assessment of another landowner. It doesn't have to be their assessment. So it was a question on the reason why we sent the report back. And it sounds like a logical question. I'll sum it up. Basically, in the report that went back, there were two lands. One was 0.75 of an acre and one was 2.10 of an acre. And those were merged into one owner that's on this schedule in front of council today. And the total acreage there is 2.81, which doesn't add up. There's 0.04 of an acre that's missing. So the question was on that 0.04 acres. And the answer is quite simple. During the process of severance, surveys were conducted, and the engineer had an opportunity to look at detailed areas. And then taking account that the original parcel still has a portion of land in the recent apportionment agreement that's assessed to the Tecumseh outlet drain. So on L'Esperance, the 0.04 acres is actually not gone. It's just in a different drain. So the accurate representation of the 2.81 acres in the current schedule is accurate. And then recently, as yesterday, July 12th, we received a letter from our delegate this evening, and with a couple issues in the letter. But the main issue with respect to drainage is the abandonment of a portion of drain. So had a lengthy discussion with this property owner today, and they were provided, instructed on the procedures to abandon a portion of a municipal drain. So the drain itself does have legal status. It is under bylaw. It is still currently a municipal drain, and in order to abandon it, there's a separate process. So it was clarified of today's process to provisionally adopt the variation and assessment schedule, and there'll be plenty of time to talk about abandoning any portion of this drain if required. It was not recommended, but there's further discussion that has to be had. And one last thing, IRCA had responded they will not attend today's meeting, but our current permit that we have on the maintenance work is still good until 2022, May of 2022. So any works that we're going to do on the north portion of this drain, north-south portion of the drain, will still be under that permit. That's it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Paglia. On the comments that our superintendent brought forward, is there any questions at this stage here, members of council? Or none? We do have a delegation this evening. It's Mr. Rick McDonald, and I will then relinquish the floor to Mr. McDonald.
Unfortunately, Rick is still caught up in an appointment and hadn't been able to get away. So he's en route somewhere, but understood from his discussion with Mr. Paglia that the matter that he shared with him can be handled at a later time with further discussion. So that there
Okay.
wasn't too much to say about it today.
Okay,
Further.
so if that's the
This is-
case,
I'm Barb, his wife, Barb Bigger.
Hi, Barb.
nice to meet you.
Landowner.
And so if it's Mr. Paglia, I don't know if you have anything there, you're okay. Yeah, in your comments and what you've just heard from one of the proponents, that we can deal with this in the future.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, procedurally, there is an opportunity for council to abandon the project as is, but my recommendation would be not to, for various reasons, and they become legal reasons and legal status of the drain, etc. So I did forward the request form, the link anyway, to fill out the request form, and there are criteria that has to be met for council to consider the abandonment of the drain. Obviously, an engineer will be involved. You know, and I offered as well to meet with the landowners on site to see what's actually happening there and describe more in more detail common law versus statute law, et cetera, et cetera. So there is some education that has to be had here and some discussion, definitely. But as far as the variation and assessment that's in front of you, I feel very comfortable that we can proceed as is.
Yeah, I'm glad you did. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say our neighbors, of course, have already filled in this drain some time ago, and we've not had water in our portion of it for some time at the back of our house. So on Lesbronce Road, that was our concern.
Okay, so we'll make sure that Mr. Paglia is aware certainly of that. But my point was just exactly, and just want to reinforce Mr. Paglia's comments in terms of the risk and liability, especially on drains, and that we need to follow the process to a T. And in order for us to reduce or eliminate any type of liability, that'll fall back onto certainly the corporation. So if there's no further questions or comments at this stage here, then I'll move on to communications. The notice of the meeting was dated June 17th, 2021. So just a motion to receive the said communication. Councillor Jobin and Councillor Tonio, all in favor? Was if any, that's carried. Thank you. And so I believe the second item also, yeah, the bylaw will be in the bylaw to provide the reassessment of the sewer drain and extension. So those two items, both Councillor Jobin and Councillor Tonio, were fine. And reports, Public Works, Environmental Services 2021-34, requests to reconsider the engineer's report, sewer drain. So I'll call upon our director to bring that report forward.
Yes, through you, Your Worship. So the report before you today, the request to reconsider the engineer's reports. There are a number of recommendations. The first being that the reconsidered drainage report for the reassessment of the sewer drain and extension as prepared by Mark Hernandez of Dillon be received, and that consideration be given to the first and second readings of a provisional bylaw number 2021-53 to adopt the drainage report in accordance with section 42 of the Drainage Act. And further, that notice be given to all affected landowners of the Quarter Revision to be held on Tuesday, September 14th, 2021 at 6:15 p.m. In accordance with section 46(1) of the Act, subject to the adoption of the provisional bylaw.
All right, council, pleasure on the recommendation. Moved by Councilor Houston, support Councilor Tonio. Any further questions or comments on the recommendation as presented? Hearing none. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. That was the only report to deal with, members of council. So if there's no further questions or comments at this time, then adjournment's in order. Councilor Altna, Deputy Mayor McKinney. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you.